Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. You. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parira Jakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parira Jakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Shri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Gaurji Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Kopola Bhatta Das Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gurunath Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Gora Pramanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Vito Jayam Yuridayat Nasta Presho Vatareshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay. So today we're reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter 26. King Purandjana goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. And we'll be doing verses 25 and 26, and that's going to end this chapter. So I'm just going to read text 25, and then we'll do text 26 response. So. Okay. Vaktramnate vitalakam malinam biharsham. Right. Oh yeah. Vaktramnate vitalakam malinam biharsham. Samramba vimam avmristam apite. Samramba bimam avmristam apite taragmam. Pashye stanavapi sucho patatu sujato bimbadharam vikata kumkumapankaragam. My dear wife, until this day I have never seen your face without tilak decorations, nor have I seen you so morose without luster or affection, nor have I seen your two nice breasts wet with tears from your eyes. Nor have I ever before seen your lips, which are ordinarily as red as the bimba fruit, without their reddish hue. Purport. Every woman looks very beautiful when decorated with tilak and vermilion. A woman generally becomes very attractive when her lips are colored with reddish saffron or vermilion. But when one's consciousness and intelligence are without any brilliant thoughts about Krishna, they become morose and lusterless. So much so that one cannot derive any benefit despite sharp intelligence. All right, text 26. Tanme prasida surdaha krita kilpishasya.
Tanme prasida surida krita kilpishasya.
Vairam gatasya mrgayam vyasanatarasya.
Vairam gatasya mrgayam vyasanatarasya.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Vishrastapams namushati nabhajeta kritye.
Vishrastapams namushati nabhajeta kritye.
Tanme prasida surdaha krita kilbishasya.
Tanme prasida surda krita kilpishasya.
Svaram gatasya mrgayam vasanatarasya.
Svairam gatasya mrigayam vyasanaturasya.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Vishrastapams namushati nabhajeta kritye.
Vishrastapams namushati nabhajeta kritye.
Tanme prasida surdaha krita kilpishasya.
Tanme prasida surida krita kilpishasya.
Svaram gatasya mrgayam vasanatarasya.
Svairam gatasya mrigayam vyasanaturasya.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Vishrastapams namushati nabhajeta kritye. Okay, please chant.
Tanme prasida surida krita kilpishasya.
Tanme prasida surida krita kilpishasya.
Vairam gatasya mrigayam vyasana turasya.
Swaram gatasya mrgayam vyasanaturasya.
Adevaram vashagatam kushumastra vega.
Vadevaram vashakatam kusumastra vega.
Vishrastra pumsam mushati napecha krite.
Visrasta pamsna mushati gnatvicheta kritye.
Ane Pasida Sorita Pitaki Vishasya
Chanme prasida swarita krita kil prishasya.
Varam Patasha Nidayam Yasata Purasya
Swaram gatasya mrgayam vyasanatarasya.
Devaram Vashadatam Kusma Kushumastra Veda
Kadevaram vashagatam kusumastra vega.
Rashtra Saman Mushati Navajeta Krite
Visrasta pamsna mushati bhattacita kritye. All right. There's a little tricky one, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Word for word. Tat. Therefore. Me. Unto me. Prasida. Be kind. Surhida. Intimate friend. Krita kilbishasya. Having committed sinful activities. Svaram. Independently. Gatasya. One or who went. Mrigayam. Hunting. Vyasana. Vyasana. Turasya. Being influenced by sinful desire. Ka. What woman? Devaram. The husband. Vashagatam. Under her control. Kusumastrabega. Pierced by the arrow of Cupid. Visrasta. Scattered. Pamsnam. His patient. Ushati. Very beautiful. Na. Never. Bhajeta. Would embrace. Kritye. Improper duties. Okay, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Queen, due to my sinful desires, I went to the forest to hunt without asking you. Therefore, I must admit that I have offended you. Nonetheless, thinking of me as your most intimate subordinate, you should still be very much pleased with me. Factually, I am very much bereaved, but being pierced by the arrow of Cupid, I am feeling lusty. But where is the beautiful woman who would give up her lusty husband and refuse to unite with him? Please repeat. My dear Queen, due to my sinful desires, I went to the forest to hunt without asking you. Therefore, I must admit that I have offended you. Nonetheless, thinking of me as your most intimate subordinate, you should still be very much pleased with me. Factually, I am very much bereaved. But being pierced by the arrow of Cupid, I am feeling lusty. But where is the beautiful woman who would give up her lusty husband and refuse to unite with him? Okay, purport. Both men and women desire one another. That is the basic principle of material existence. Women in general always keep themselves beautiful so that they can be attractive to their lusty husbands. When a lusty husband comes before his wife, the wife takes advantage of his aggressive activities and enjoys life. Generally, when a woman is attacked by a man, whether her husband or some other man, she enjoys the attack, being too lusty. In other words, when one's intelligence is properly utilized, both the intellect and the intelligent person enjoy one another with great satisfaction. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:9-45, Yanmai Tunari Grihamedi Sukam Hitukchtam Andau Yanena Karayori Vadukam Dukam. The actual happiness of the karmis is sex life. They work very hard outside the home, and to satiate their hard labor, they come home to enjoy sex life. King Paranjana went to the forest to hunt, and after his hard labor, he returned home to enjoy sex life. If a man lives outside the home and spends a week in a city or somewhere else, at the end of the week, he becomes very anxious to return home and enjoy sex with his wife. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Karmis work very hard simply to enjoy sex. Modern human society has improved the materialistic way of life simply by inducing unrestricted sex life in many different ways. This is most prominently visible in the Western world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 4th canto, 26th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Paranjana goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. Om Gyana Timrandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaram Mayam Nirati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ranganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savadutam Parajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambitamscha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jakapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Rangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namaste Jivananda Dasyaman Charni Prabhupada Vallabhai Snigdhi Simadhuri Kyan Tratan Manamaskati Vedita Kyan Agritai Okay. All right, so this is the end of this chapter, and these verses are talking about King Paranjana. He's, he went off to hunt, and his queen was not pleased with this, and so he came home, and she's just kind of, she's not wearing her decorations. She's kind of like laying on the floor in distress, and so the king is distraught at seeing his wife in such a way. Because she's just not looking as beautiful. She's not wearing her decorations, and in the purport to the first verse that we read, Srila Prabhupada says that, but when one's consciousness and intelligence are without any brilliant thoughts about Krishna, they become morose and lusterless. So this also kind of stands to reason, which has been said many times, that with Krishna, we become beautiful. We have a luster, right? And this is actually somewhat common in various religions. You see like pictures of saints, right? And they have this effulgence. They're glowing a little bit, right? I read something earlier today where it said, it's because we're holding that bright light of God, of Krishna within us. And so it's just kind of coming out. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, there's this nice verse about how it's just about the beauty of devotees and how vibrant they are. King Prataparudra said, "Upon seeing all these devotees, I'm very much astonished, for I have never seen such effulgence. Indeed, their effulgence is like the brilliance of a million suns. Nor have I ever heard the Lord's names chanted so melodiously. I have never before seen such ecstatic love, nor heard the vibration of the holy name of the Lord chanted in such a way, nor seen such dancing during Sankirtan." So we can see, he's seeing the devotees, and they're effulgent, they're glowing. And we can see this or at least I've seen this, when somebody first comes. I don't really notice anything unusual about them or anything. That's nothing that really I notice. But after they've been practicing and chanting for a while, all of a sudden they come and they just look brighter and they just look healthier and more at peace. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And that's because when we are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, and we're having those nice thoughts about Krishna, we have that luster. So just kind of the opposite of what Prabhupada says here about without any brilliant thoughts about Krishna, they become morose and lusterless, right? So have you seen that? You've seen that in people? Yeah.
Yeah. Or your devotees, they raise up and fall down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see that too. Like if someone kind of has a moment of backsliding, then that luster kind of lessens a little bit, right? So
Luster turns into lust.
yeah, there you go. The luster turns into lust. Very good. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean that the devotees kind of automatically become beautiful with the practice of Krishna consciousness. This is a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Madhava Maharaj in 1970. Srila Prabhupada says, "These newspaper reporters advertise about the boys and girls as the bright-faced, and actually it is so. By nature, these American boys and girls are fair-complexioned or white. They are beautiful also, and when they take to Krishna consciousness with symbols of mala and tilak, they appear to be coming directly from the Vaikuntha planets." And there's been many people who reported that Srila Prabhupada was just kind of glowing, right? We've all heard these stories. Yeah.
You could see it. I don't think everybody saw it, but it was obvious to them.
Yeah. And so, when I was growing up, and I would see like pictures of like Catholic Christian saints, and they always had that kind of little glow around them, and I always kind of like wondered about that. It's like, why? What is that? What is that? Is that a real thing, or is it just like metaphorical? Like it's just a metaphorical representation? And since trying to become a devotee now, I realize no, this is a literal representation of someone who's practicing a spiritual practice that's bringing them closer to God, bringing them closer to Krishna. They start to really become effulgent, like Srila Prabhupada. And to a lesser level, pretty much all the devotees that I see, they have a little bit of effulgence about them. So, okay, so then this verse goes on to talk about how a woman, she wants to, decorate, she likes to decorate herself for her husband. And that she enjoys the attention of her husband and takes advantage of this to live well. And I think this this is definitely alive and well in our society. We can see many examples of this. One, I mean, we have this billion-dollar beauty industry where, women and now men also are starting to do things like wear makeup and yeah, it's especially in Asia. There's a lot of just makeup for men, and but for a long time it's been primarily women that have been using these things to beautify themselves because they're enjoying feeling good about themselves and enjoying people reacting positively. And I've seen it so many times, women sort of using this advantage of being beautiful to get men to do stuff for them, whether it's to buy them things, oh, let me get my hair and nails done, or buy me a drink, or buy me dinner, or getting the house they want. Most men I know would be perfectly happy with seeing an empty room with like a lawn chair and a television, and that's it. But a woman, she wants to make it nice, make it look nice, and so she's like, oh, I remember when I was married, I was always bugging my husband because I didn't work, he worked, and so I was always bugging him for money to buy something new to decorate the house, make it look nice, and he did. He gave me whatever I asked for the most part. Or we have women talk about, they have the honey-do list, like, honey, please, will you do this and that and this and this. Right. And so we see this kind of dynamic is very much alive and well. And even, and I'm not saying I'm on any great beauty or anything, certainly not. But even, sometimes, being a woman can be kind of a bummer with certain things. Women are often, kind of overlooked or not as respected in certain fields or whatever it is. But then there's certain advantages like, oh, can you carry this heavy thing for me? Or, get that thing down from way up high or something like that. And so I admit to taking advantage of men in that way. Yes, please help me carry this heavy thing. And in reality, I could probably carry it. I just don't want to.
You're so big and strong.
Yes, so don't get any ideas about having me carry my own heavy stuff. Okay. Anyway, okay. So why do we kind of do these things? Why do women make themselves attractive? And why do men respond to that? Why do they agree? Okay, yes, I'll carry your heavy things. I will, buy you the nice curtains you want, whatever it is. Well, it's generally all to facilitate, having a sex life. Now that might be, a subtle sex life, not necessarily gross sex life, but in general, it's for kind of a gross sex life. So Prabhupada, he mentions this one verse. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, 7:945. So I'm gonna, and this verse sort of equates sex life with distress. So I'm going to read what that verse says. Okay, so sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands to reach an itch. Grihamadis, so-called grihastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. The kripanas, the fools who are just the opposite of brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. Those who are dhira, however, are sober, and who tolerate this itching are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. Okay. So give me 1 second. We have a guest in the Swami suite. Okay, sorry. We have a guest and they're calling me and, and I had to tell them I'm giving class. Okay. So we can see from this verse, Srila Prabhupada is not only is sex life being equated with distress, but it's also being pointed out that it's not satisfying, right? It's just not satisfying, and we can see this play out in really horrible ways in the way that. Can you go get our guest and tell Mother Sundamani she wants to check out? She's right outside. Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
Not satisfying.
yeah. So it's not satisfying, and so we can see this play out in some really horrible ways. In the way, like when they catch people with really horrible kinds of pornography, right? And that's because they had to escalate that the regular it wasn't satisfying anymore, so they had to move to something that was more shocking, more enticing, whatever it is. And then ultimately they just end up going to more degraded forms in order to kind of get that same satisfaction that they were getting. So although it may satisfy in the short term, in the long term, it's just like anything, we get something new and we like it, we're enjoying it. But after a while, that newness wears off and now we're looking for the next thing, right? And so it's just not very satisfying. And we're talking about, like illicit sex, not because Krishna does say, I am sex life, not contrary to religious principles. So that is something different. The other thing is that it's equated with distress, right? So we can see this absolutely in societal life. So this takes on the form of just very like jealousy, right? We see people, they get involved with somebody intimately, and suddenly they become very jealous, very possessive. The saddest thing I see when it's like when you have a friend, they're single, they're your friend, and then they pair up, and suddenly you don't ever see them again, right? Because they're too kind of involved in their relationship. Or if you do, it's not the same. It's like not the same as it once was because one of the partners is very jealous over that time. They may not be jealous like in the way that, oh, you're trying to take my partner from me, but they're jealous of that time. They're guarding it very jealously, right? And then the distress we have of STDs, right? I mean, that's kind of goes without saying. Then there's unwanted pregnancy. This is all cause of illicit sex. Then there's crimes of passion, right? People get so passionate that they come home, they see their partners cheated on them, and they end up, killing them or killing the new partner as well. So, I mean, these are all kinds of distress caused by illicit sex. Or if you were ever in the dating scene, you might hear about, oh, I have a crazy ex, right? My ex is crazy. They won't leave me alone. They're stalking me. These are all kind of very serious manifestations of distress. So So also in the 1960s, there was kind of this whole movement, the free love movement, right? Everybody was just trying, and you know, in the abstract, it sounds kind of nice. Oh, everybody should love each other. We should all share, and things should be, you know, just kind of a nice utopia, right? But really, that's not what happened. It didn't work out that way. And so the free love movement kind of didn't really work out. And some of the reasons for that is some of the reasons we already mentioned, which is, you know, STDs, but also it was kind of ripe for the exploitation of women because it's just a biological fact that sex life for a woman is more risky than it is for a man, right? Because we have the capacity to bear children, and that even if it's just for the pregnancy, that's 9 months that, you know, your body is going through all kinds of changes, and you're just not as, you know, kind of free to do whatever you want as it is for men. You know, they don't have to deal with pregnancy and generally don't bear the most of the work of raising a child, right? And so because of that imbalance, it is a situation where women can be exploited very easily, right? And then also there was a growing desire for people to just have emotionally stable, committed relationships instead of kind of this free-for-all, because it's very hard to have a nice, stable, emotionally fulfilling relationship, you know, with 25 different people, right? You know, it's just not very feasible. One, your attention's divided, and two, it's just you don't really have to you know, be very genuine and very deep with each person if you're hopping to a new one, right? And so, yeah, because of this, these are some of the reasons that that the free love movement kind of failed. And so now, even I just read some studies now about the youngest generation. Well, not the youngest generation, they call them Gen Z now. And statistically, they're having even less illicit sex than the previous generations. So that's a good thing. And part of the motivations for this is because there's more focus on having healthy relationships and good mental health. And so that's good to see that kind of that free love movement, although idealized sounds very good, it really in practice didn't work out so good. So one thing that one of my personal realizations is, you know, when I put white on and I became renounced, sometimes people think like, oh, if you're renounced, you know, you don't even notice, you know, if somebody's attractive or something. And that's not true. I mean, you still have eyes, you know, you can see. And I remember talking to someone else who is also renounced, and they said, well, when they see a pretty girl, I mean, they see, yeah, she's a pretty girl, but it's more like you're just seeing like a pretty flower or something, you know. It's not like when you see a pretty flower, you don't sit there and go, oh gosh, you know, you don't like sit there and just ruminate on that flower thinking, oh, I'd really love to put that flower in a vase, and you know, no, you see you see the pretty flower and you think, oh, nice, what a pretty flower, and you move on, right? And so that's kind of the mentality one should have when, instead of this exploitive mentality, like, oh, you know, I want to enjoy that attractive person. No, we should, oh, there's an attractive person. Okay, don't be ruminating on it. So our society is geared towards unrestricted sex life. We have websites that are completely dedicated to helping people cheat on their partners, and it's very popular, right? There was a big scandal maybe about 10 years ago where they got hacked and their the contact information of the people that were using this website was released, right? And so there were so many people exposed. Yes, right. And so this website is just for cheaters. I mean, it's not hiding that fact, right? And so, and we also just have in general that's really geared towards, helping you find a partner for right now, not, just for today, tomorrow we'll find someone else. But also in the general attitudes of our society, like, I'm sure many of you growing up might have heard this concept, the concept of puppy love, right? Your parents or your friends or whatever say, oh, it's not going to last. It's just puppy love. You'll have many boyfriends or girlfriends after this, don't get too upset about it or whatever. It's just puppy love. And that's sort of like perpetuating this idea that, it's okay to sort of wander around from relationship to relationship. And then, marriage is often discouraged, especially for young people in their 20s. You see, you're so young. No, don't get married yet. You're so young. And then for people that aren't married, divorce is encouraged so often, right? Oh, you're having some problems with your husband or your wife. Oh, you know what? You should just divorce him, And so these are the kind of the messages that our society is giving out. It's kind of, these messages are increasing, they're not really decreasing. Because I do remember when I was younger, it was more, the message was a lot more of, try to work it out, stay together, don't get divorced, right? Or the message was, at least, if you got pregnant before marriage, was you better get married, right? You better marry that girl. But that message isn't really given so much anymore. It's becoming more and more rare. And another example is, we talked about crimes of passion. You actually get a lesser of a sentence if you can say, oh, well, it was a crime of passion. I was temporarily insane, right? I was temporarily insane when I murdered this person, right? And so now instead of getting, decades in prison or life in prison, now you maybe get a few years, if that. Sometimes you get probation, right? Depending on who your judge is and your jury and stuff. And look at politics, right? In politics, having an affair used to be political suicide. Absolutely, right? You had an affair, you were done. It was just, but as we can see right now, you can be elected president and have multiple affairs and even more seedy types of transactional relationships, and it doesn't mean anything, Or there was this was quite a while back in the 90s, I believe, when the mayor of DC, he had gotten caught in a hotel room with a prostitute and taking drugs as well, and he didn't lose his job. He continued to be mayor, and he got reelected. So these are the people that,
Human nature.
yeah, it's just human nature. Everybody's fallible. Or we look at, I've talked in previous classes about so many religious leaders that have gotten caught in various affair scandals, sex scandals, and they would, say, "Oh, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry," and they would be forgiven, which that is what Jesus taught. But someone that is showing that they don't have character, you might not want to take your spiritual advice from. That's all. So, okay, so these are all ways that we can see that our whole society is just geared towards unrestricted sex life. And people are just working so hard for that enjoyment, right? They're just working so hard for it. We can see that, Kirtan Yagya said this in his class, was it last week, I think? And he said that something to the effect of that the people that are best able to take care of a baby, that can afford it and, are stable and stuff like that. They're really not having so many babies nowadays, and that's statistically true. But the people that are least in the good position to have a baby, they're having the most children right now. And that's because that's really the only enjoyment that they can access, right? The only sense enjoyment, or the greatest sense enjoyment they can access. Whereas people that are more well off, they have so many different choices to gratify their senses, right? That don't always result in children. And so there's certain qualifications to be a parent, and they're not really being met so much, at all really in our society. So in the 5th canto, it says, one who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. And so this is from a purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Everyone naturally gets a father and mother at the time of birth, but the real father and mother are those who can release their offspring from the clutches of imminent death. This is possible only for parents advanced in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, any parents who cannot enlighten their offspring in Krishna consciousness cannot be accepted as real father and mother. The following verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu affirms the uselessness of serving ordinary parents. One should perform only those activities, either worldly or prescribed by Vedic rules and regulations, which are favorable to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So, Srila Prabhupada also says in a purport in the 3rd canto, unless one can train a child for liberation in that life, there is no need to marry or produce children. If human society produces children like cats and dogs for the disturbance of social order, then this world becomes hellish, as it has in this age of Kali. In this age, neither parents nor their children are trained. Both are animalistic and simply eat, sleep, mate, defend, and gratify their senses. This disorder in social life cannot bring peace to human society. So we can see so many people in our society, they're just having children, kind of not even not even thinking about it. And even people that do plan to have their children and they raise them nicely and they make sure they go to good schools and all this. Even so, the majority of them are not training them to become liberated, to get out of this cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. And so that is what we should be training our children to do. Let's see. So it's a bit like, we're enjoying, when we're talking about illicit sex, societies just like enjoying at their own expense, right? They're kind of eating their own flesh in a way. It's like that story of the camel eating the thorns, right? He's eating these thorns and he's thinking like, wow, these are really good. He's really enjoying it. But really, the thorns are pricking the inside of his mouth and he's bleeding and he's enjoying the taste of his own blood, right? And this is what illicit sex is doing to our society, what we're doing to ourselves. And in the story of Devahuti and Karma, right? Karma Muni, Devahuti, she very much wanted to have children, and she approached her husband, children, and he gave her children. He gave her, I think it was 9 daughters, I think. Yeah. But then she wanted a son also who ended up being Kapila, Lord Kapila. Yeah. But before, when she first approached her husband for children, he made a very big, huge, beautiful aerial mansion. And I mean, it's such one of my favorite stories because it just sounds so cool. And I'm just like, wow, that sounds really nice. I would like to go in that big aerial mansion. And they flew all around and they enjoyed each other and they enjoyed sex life together. And for a very, very long time they did. But at the end, after all that enjoyment, enjoyment we can't even comprehend, right? This aerial mansion was, like a big palace with gardens and things like that. And it's flying all over the universe to like really cool places. And you're with your husband and just enjoying, you have so many servants. None of us have access to that kind of enjoyment. But even after that unbelievable amount of enjoyment, Devahuti was bummed out. She was lamenting. And this is what she said. Until now, we have simply wasted so much of our time in sense gratification, neglecting to cultivate knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Unknowing your transcendental situation, I have loved you while remaining attached to the objects of the senses. Nonetheless, I let the affinity I have developed for you rid me of all fear. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage. But the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be considered dead, although he is breathing. My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation. So after all that enjoyment, she felt cheated. She felt cheated. So that's how we know this material sense gratification is just not satisfying to us. But what is satisfying is our service to Krishna. And so I'm going to end with a quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, about the one good quality that's available in this age of Kali Yuga. And that is, it says, my dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Maha Mantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So, in that way, that is truly satisfying. It's satisfying to Krishna, which is then satisfying to us as well, because we satisfy Krishna's senses, we satisfy our own senses. And so I talked a lot about kind of just, how bad, illicit sex life was. And I really wanted to talk more about, the good stuff, but we're sort of running out of time a little bit here. But, and also I got very distracted. There's a lot going on. So I think we'll end there. But if anybody wants to have any comments or questions, or maybe talk about any feelings of like satisfaction you've had in your service, and how wonderful that can be. Anybody?
Well, first, I just wanted to mention that Devahuti served her husband.
Yeah.
Just, she just was skinny and, not even clean,
Yeah.
And then, she wanted to, and so they did enjoy for a really long time. But, you're talking about the movement. Prabhupada taught us the difference between love and lust.
Yeah.
Lust is temporary, love is eternal. And what is love? Love is Krishna consciousness and the bliss of devotional service and the relationships with the devotees. And that's what they're so happy that they're effulgent, So, Jai Prabhupada,
Yeah. It's funny when I go to like the anywhere, the store or something like that, and I just see like, you look around at people's faces and they just look so downtrodden and so distressed and downtrodden and kind of gray almost, but then when you come here and you're with the devotees, everybody's, generally pretty happy, even if they're having a bad day, they have this just effulgence, this lightness about them. Yeah.
people are struggling.
Yeah.
And suffering. The devotees have like nectar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that ambrosia.
Ooh, yeah.
The devotees have the solution.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody else is just bewildered,
Yeah.
wondering what is the solution?
Yeah, and it's really sad too when sometimes I want to tell people this solution, but they don't want to hear it,
Right.
and so then at what point what do you do then? You just have to just keep trying, but for someone who will hear it,
Preach by example.
Yeah,
Some of them even get angry.
yeah, yeah.
They absolutely will.
Yeah. So, and that's unfortunate, but all we can do is just keep trying, like you said, live by example, and eventually one day they'll see, what's going on with this person. Why do they're so happy, they're so effulgent.
What you have.
Yeah, what do you have that I don't have?
And
Yeah.
there does need to be examples,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's like.
Be a hypocrite.
I've had people tell me that one devotees that tried to read the Bhagavatam, they said, well, it sounds nice on paper, but who can do this?
Right.
So it's up to us to show that, yes,
Yeah.
with endeavor and sincerity, it can work.
Yeah.
And it's a gradual process. If you can't do everything 100%, I mean, there's so much, but if you just try and, build and, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, when I first came to be around the devotees, that was what was impressive to me, was that, okay, because I knew I had read the Gita and I started reading the Bhagavatam and so I knew, like you said, okay, this sounds nice on paper, but how can you actually do this? But to see people that were actually doing it and they were actually practicing what they were preaching. Okay, maybe not everything perfectly, but at least you're trying, and
Right.
and you can see that they're trying sincerely. Whereas in some other practices that I've seen, other groups I've seen, it just seemed very apparent that, this is what we're preaching, but we don't actually do that, and
There's no potency.
there was no potency, yeah. And so, but here with the devotees, you could see that potency, actually sincerely endeavoring to follow these ideals. So,
Right. Then you're encouraged because it's doable.
yeah, and it is doable. I think we, our society is sort of just set up to make us believe that it's not.
Oh, right.
Nobody follows that.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right. Okay. Well, and then Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Sorry for being so distracted.